If you're a justice impacted person going into the federal prison system, and as we approach the winter of 2022, you've got to be thinking about the CARES Act and how that might apply to you. The CARES Act has a direct relationship to everybody in federal prison, but a lot of people don't really understand how they could use that act to help them potentially serve their sentences on home confinement rather than inside of a federal prison. That's the reason that we published a new article today on our website here at prisonprofessors.com. And if you want to see the article, I encourage you, just go to prisonprofessors.com, go to the blog at the top of the page right here. You can click on the blog, and right now you'll see it, but without the graphic. I'll have the graphic up a little later along the same time that I'll have the video. We always produce this content with a link to iTunes so that you might be able to listen to it while you're driving down the road, so that you may want to subscribe on iTunes. We also publish it, of course, on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe. But we also provide it to people inside of jails and prisons across America. And that's the reason that I want to read the article, because in case somebody is in prison and they have challenges reading or in jail, I want them to get this information, because that's what really we stand for, is helping justice impacted people get the best possible outcome if they're going into the journey. So I'm going to start by just reading the caption, which is right here. It just says, with the anticipation of a rise in COVID cases during the winter of 2022, people going into the federal prison system should update their knowledge of the CARES Act and how it influences people in federal prison. So in 2022, I'm going to give you the backstory right now with hopes that it will help you along the way. In 2020, at the start of the COVID pandemic, the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons began implementing changes. People living in prison cannot practice all the safety protocols recommended by the Center for Disease Control. With the CARES Act, the Attorney General issued a memorandum with guidance for the Bureau of Prisons. Over subsequent months, the Bureau of Prisons issued a series of other memorandums wardens could use as a guide. Wardens should assess the following factors to determine a person's suitability for transfer to home confinement. Number 1, does the person have a clean disciplinary record? Number 2, does the person have a verifiable release plan? Number 3, does the person have a history of violence? Number 4, does the person have a detainer? Number 5, does the person's security level advance him as a candidate for transition to home confinement? Number 6, does the person have a pattern score that makes him a viable candidate for transition to home confinement? And number 7, does the person's age and vulnerability to COVID-19, according to the CDC guidelines, make him a reasonable candidate? Besides those 7 factors that administrators must consider, the BOP decided to prioritize specific people for consideration as priority candidates for transition to home confinement under the CARES Act. What are those specifics? Well, people who have served 50% or more of their sentences, and people who meet the dual criteria of serving at least 25% of their sentences and also are within 18 months of their release date, as well as people who are pregnant. So people may click the link below to review the memorandum in itself, Memo on Home Confinement Pursuant to the CARES Act from the Bureau of Prisons. And if you scroll to the top of the page here of our website, and you just simply click the PDF, you will go directly to a link where that memorandum shows up. So we're trying to give you all the resources you need to help yourself. But of course, these memos and this information was published at the start of the pandemic. Well, now we're coming into October of 2022, and people want to know, does that still apply? The answer is yes. So the CARES Act still does apply. And we know that people are still being released under the CARES Act. So it's important to get information on saying, can you get the benefit of the CARES Act? And the reason that you can is because you should be arguing that with the growing expectation for rising COVID infections during the winter of 2022, you should be serving your sentence on home confinement rather than inside of a prison. More than 2 years have passed since the president signed the CARES Act. It has been extended twice. And in March of 2022, the White House published a document to help people understand the plan going forward. You can see that I've also provided the link to that plan. I can show it to those who have access to the internet right here. You can just see the plan. I could be scrolling through it, and it's giving pretty clear guidance that the White House is continuing to put an emphasis on reducing the people's exposure to COVID. And that's something for people to know. If people are in a prison, they just can't practice all the safety protocols that the White House is recommending. And they've published quite a bit of information on it. Right here, you can see their National COVID-19 Preparedness Plan of March 2022. You can just download that document right from our website. But ideally, what we want you to know is these are options that are available to anybody in federal prison. In October, there I was talking about that. According to the reporting in the plan, the U.S. should prepare for a spike in COVID cases this winter as more people gather indoors and infections already begin to rise in Europe. Rise in Europe, the White House COVID-19 response coordinator tells us that we can expect to see the same thing that we're seeing in England, France, and Italy spreading over here to the United States. In fact, there are many experts saying the same thing. In the past, what's happened in Europe often has been a harbinger for what's about to happen in the United States, says Michael Osterholm. He serves as the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota. So I think the bottom line message for us in this country is we have to be prepared for what we are seeing in Europe. Now, people going into the federal prison system may want to cite this information when applying for consideration for transition to home confinement under the guidance of the CARES Act. It is always important to remember that although leaders in the Bureau of Prisons have the discretion to transfer people to home confinement, right? They've got the discretion. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to exercise that discretion and send people home. So what do you need to know about how to apply for CARES Act relief? Well, the first step for people who want to request relief under the CARES Act, it would be to assess whether they are viable candidates. Okay, are you a viable candidate for release? We encourage people to use those 7 points above that I gave and also assess their release date. If they meet the essential guidelines, then people should work toward building a verifiable release plan. And of course, we offer guidance on how to create an excellent release plan. For those who have an interest, you can click the link that appears on the website and just look at one of our other assets here on our website that will help you understand what does a release plan look like. We know that it's very difficult to be going into the federal prison system, to be separated from your loved ones. But when you got sentenced to prison, you didn't also get sentenced to get COVID or to not be able to take care of your health. There's just so much information out there that you should be using to become an effective self-advocate. You can count on us at Prison Professors to do our part to help as much as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, it's all, once a person has been sentenced, everything is about self-advocacy, figuring out ways to influence the machine. You may not be able to change the machine while you're in prison, but if you understand how the system operates and what goes on with the prison system, well, then you may be in a better position to influence stakeholders or influence people that you may never meet. What can you do to get yourself out of prison and back to your family as soon as possible? We're big believers in people advocating to get home for a number of reasons, but primarily because we think that you're better off to prepare for success from your home than you are from inside of a prison where all kinds of things can go wrong. So we like to understand what the levers are and then figure out how do we pull those levers to work for you. I do encourage you to continue consuming all of the information that we offer on Prison Professors. It doesn't take anything more than your time to read or to listen and learn. But if you're going into the prison system, it behooves you to figure out, okay, what's working in other parts of the country? What has worked for other people? What can I do to help myself? I served 26 years in prison, and these are the strategies that worked for me, to always be advocating. That's what we want you to be doing as well. So please become a member of our community at Prison Professors by subscribing to us on YouTube or subscribing to us on iTunes, or if you're inside of a federal prison, make sure you go through all of the courses that we offer that will help you advocate for yourself so that you can get the best possible outcome. I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and we believe in you. Thanks.